Some of you may have seen the video by the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, leader of the Labour Party, with a 100-day challenge where she listed off everything they did in the first 100 days of government. So I thought I'd do the same for the BC NDP and what they've accomplished since 2017 when they became the minority government with the Greens with a confidence and supply agreement. I know there's some notable things that they've done which aren't as laudable, like proceeding with a Site C dam or supporting the LNG plant in Kitimat. That requires another video. Have a listen.
The BC NDP has followed through or made progress on 96 of 122 pledges made in their 2017 election platform. In the arts, the BC NDP increased investments in Creative BC to support the film, music, media, and magazine publishing industries, provided new incentives for film producers to use BC writers, invested $7.5 million to support and sustain British Columbia's music industry during the pandemic, and increased funding for BC Arts Council. In the agriculture sector, the BC NDP established the Beer, Wine and Spirit Advisory Panel, revitalized the Agricultural Land Reserve, created the Food Security Task Force to strengthen the agricultural sector. Regarding childcare, the BC NDP brought in a no childcare fee for families with incomes below $40,000, increased support payments for foster parents and caregivers, increased the number of $10 a day childcare spots, and created a BC Opportunity Benefit, which provides a tax-free monthly payment to families with children under the age of 18. With crime, the BC NDP set targets to reduce the number of Aboriginal people facing the justice system, gave the Surrey Wraparound Program an extra $500,000 a year to eliminate the waitlist for the Youth Anti-Gang Program, increased the number of court sheriffs, and provided culturally diverse and appropriate programming in prisons. They increased funding for women experiencing violence by $8 million a year, launched a public inquiry into dirty money in BC to crack down on money laundering, and gave workers facing domestic violence up to 5 days paid leave, adding to the days of unpaid leave.
We're not finished yet.
With climate issues, the BC NDP launched Clean BC, a pathway to achieve the legislated climate targets, renewed the climate leadership team, and re-established the innovative clean energy program. Regarding democracy, the BC NDP brought in legislation to protect freedom of speech and expression, completed a referendum on electoral reform, banned corporate and union donations to political parties, and passed partial legislation to protect whistleblowers, strengthen conflict of interest legislation, and improve access to information rules. For the economy, the BC NDP created a small business task force committed to raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2021, appointed a chief talent officer for the tech sector, cut small business tax rate by 0.5%, gave credit unions permanent tax status, removed the electricity provincial sales tax, strengthened the venture capitalist tax credit for BC companies, started the establishment of innovation centres across BC, invested $20 billion to build new hospitals, bridges, roads, and schools, thereby creating jobs, relaunched Buy BC campaign, which connects farmers to restaurateurs and chefs, started the expansion of wireless to rural, remote, and Indigenous communities, and committed to creating 96,000 construction jobs over 5 years. In education, the BC NDP completed a comprehensive review of K-12 funding formula, eliminated fees for adult basic English and English as a second language learning, started to expand the Aboriginal Head Start programs for Aboriginal early childhood education, accelerated the seismic upgrade program of schools, developed an Indigenous language and history curriculum, started the implementation of the K-12 education calls to action from Truth and Reconciliation report, kept a cap on tuition fees, set funding for the first merit-based graduate scholarship program, provided for $100 million for tech-related post-secondary programs, added 2,900 new tech-related spots in colleges and universities, set a new post-secondary grant for students, hired 4,000 new teachers, invested $2.7 billion for new and replacement schools, created a $5 million per year school playground fund, required all public schools to provide students with access to free menstrual products in school washrooms, mandated apprentice ratios on government-funded products, and provided incentives to the public sector to hire and train apprentices.
We're still not finished.
For employment, the BC NDP started to update the employment standards regulations and worked with First Nations to increase the number of skilled employees on worksites. In the energy sector, the BC NDP established a BC Mining Jobs Task Force, did a scientific review of fracking, and made a $20 million investment in an oversight body for the mining industry. Regarding the environment, the BC NDP updated environment assessment process to respect rights of Indigenous people, started a review of the Water Sustainability Act, worked towards implementing recommendations from Cohen Commission regarding the sockeye salmon population in the Fraser River, banned the grizzly bear trophy hunt, provided more park rangers, conservation officers, and campsites, renewed the climate leadership panel, restored funding for BC parks, put British Columbians first in line for campsite bookings, added $111 million to combat and prevent forest fires, started to protect wild salmon migration routes, and work with First Nations to protect wild salmon stocks, and developed a wild salmon strategy. In forestry, the BC NDP expanded investments in reforestation and offered incentives to BC builders that use engineered wood products. Regarding equity and human rights, the BC NDP appointed BC's first parliamentary secretary for gender equality, made reconciliation a cross-government priority to fully adopt and implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, re-established the BC Human Rights Commission and appointed British Columbia's first human rights commissioner, introduced X-gender options for BC-issued identity documents, and is investing $175,000 in the Respectful Workplace Diversity and Gender Parity Fund. In health, the BC NDP eliminated MSP premiums, gave more support for insulin pump program for people over 25, committed to make team-based primary care a top priority for health ministry, opened 12 urgent and primary care centers, established a new urgent care model bridging emergency rooms and walk-in clinics, reduced wait times for MRIs, gave more resources to the therapeutics initiative, which evaluates effectiveness of medications, invested $4.4 billion in healthcare, and started 13 hospital projects. In housing, the BC NDP gave $123 million for the expansion of student housing to University of Victoria, gave more resources to the residential tenancy branch, established up to a 2% absentee speculators tax, gave more rights to tenants, established legislation requiring fair treatment for tenants during landlord renovations, removed fixed-term lease loophole for tenants, brought in a tax on real estate speculation and vacancy, supported seniors, families, and low-end and middle-income learners by funding 4,900 units of new affordable rental housing, funded 340 units of transition housing for those leaving violence, invested $7 billion over 10 years in housing affordability, more than 22,000 affordable homes completed or underway in close to 90 communities across BC, reinvested in co-op housing, and introduced a tax on short-term rentals that take properties out of the rental pool. Regarding immigration, the BC NDP ended collection of recruitment fees from temporary foreign workers and created a temporary foreign worker registry and expanded settlement and integration services to benefit newcomers. To reduce poverty, the BC NDP introduced British Columbia's first poverty reduction strategy to reduce overall poverty by 25%, eliminated interest on all current, future, and outstanding student loans, expanded tax credit for climate action for low and middle-income families, and developed a comprehensive poverty reduction strategy. Regarding mental health and addictions, the BC NDP passed a bill giving some first responders easier access to mental health supports, created the first Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, created a province-wide strategy on naloxone kits, is developing mental health resources for students, committed $20 million to Indigenous communities to address the ongoing opioid crisis, invested $332 million to tackle overdose crisis, and launched a class action lawsuit against opioid companies for misleading marketing practices. For seniors, the BC NDP demanded and set accountability on staffing standards for care centres, gave more support for the Shelter Aid for Elderly Renters program, increased hours for seniors caregivers, and are increasing the length of home support visits. In social services, the BC NDP increased income assistance by $100 per month, conducted a province-wide homeless count, allowed people re-entering the workforce to keep an extra $200 per month, ended the disability bus pass clawback, increased disability rates by $100 per month, gave youth aging out of care free tuition for post-secondary education, and implemented recommendations from Ed John's report, which keeps Indigenous youth out of government care. Regarding transportation, the BC NDP did a comprehensive review of BC ferries and reversed the service cuts made in 2014, froze or reduced fares on major ferry routes, eliminated tolls on Port Mann and the Golden Ears bridges, started overhauling ICBC, eliminated a referendum requirement for new transit projects, invested in widening Highway No. 1 and new Petula bridges, expanded commuter service into Fraser Valley, worked with Metro Vancouver mayors to develop transportation infrastructure, and is developing a new TransLink governance model. Much done, much more to be done in next term.
Remember to get out and vote on October 24th.